Hi everyone, I'm Stella. I've written this special children's story just for Rodolivos, a cozy village in northern Greece. Let's discover its beauty together. An adventurous summer in Rodolivos. Ioanna and Philippos were eagerly looking forward to spending the summer in the favorite village Rodolivos. Summer there was always full of adventures and new discoveries, but this year seemed like something truly special was waiting for them. At Grandpa Nikos's house, there was a big red tractor he used for his tobacco farming. Every morning he would start the engine and the whole neighborhood would hear the familiar sound of the tractor. It was like a morning greeting. In the garden of the grandparents, flower beds were filled with tomatoes, cucumbers and many flowers, while cats played tag among them. Near the corner of the garden stood an old olive tree, and around its trunk vines full of grapes had climbed as if they had been intertwined together through time. The house was full of life and smiles. One morning, Ioanna and Philippos decided to visit the caves of Saint Athanasius, one of their favorite places in the village. The forest of Saint Athanasius spread across the lower slopes of Mount Pangeo, surrounded by pine trees, cypresses, and the scents of nature. As they wandered among the rocks, Ioanna stumbled upon something hard. It was an old wooden box. They opened it carefully and found a yellowed map with 4 marked spots that seemed important: the Apollon Music and Drama Society, the Folklore Museum, the Cultural Association, and the Town Hall of Rodolivos. "We have to visit all these places," said Philippos excitedly. The map seemed to be hiding some kind of secret. Their first stop was the Apollon Musical and Dramatic Society, where the members of the Philharmonic were rehearsing. As they entered, the president of Apollon welcomed them and showed them the musical instruments. "This society is proof of our town's culture," he said proudly. "Music keeps our cultural heritage alive." The president of Apollon began to tell Philippos and Ioanna a very old story. "It all started in 1903, he said with a smile. "Back then, a few musicians in Rodolivos gathered and formed a small band. Little by little, more joined, all with a love for music and singing, and that's how the society was born." Philippos and Ioanna listened with great admiration. "The society has 2 beautiful groups," the president continued. "The Philharmonic Band, which plays music, and the choir, which sings. They perform at festivals and travel to other places to bring joy to everyone. And from 1924 until today," he added, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret, "Apollon fills Rodolivos with music, joy and smiles." The president went on telling the children, "If you'd like, you can come visit us. I'll show you the musical instruments up close, the choir and anything else you're interested in. The society is always open to children like you." Filled with excitement from the president's story, the children decided to visit the Apollon Society. Inside, they found an old bulletin board covered with faded posters from past events. Among them was a small handwritten note: "The history of our land lives on through our music, songs and festivals. This is our culture." Philippos and Ioanna exchanged a glance full of understanding, realizing how important that message was. Without a second thought, they decided to visit the next place, the Folklore Museum. The Folklore Museum was full of old objects and tools once used by the local people, mainly for growing tobacco and wheat. There were hoes, large baskets for carrying tobacco leaves, and wooden frames where the leaves were laid out to dry. An elderly man approached them and spoke about the history of the area. This museum shows how our ancestors lived, he said. With these tools, they worked in the fields to support the families. This is our cultural heritage. Inside the Folklore Museum, there was a sign that said, "The Festival of Kuritos." "How interesting," said Ioanna. "All these objects are connected to the history and culture of our land." In Rodolivos, every year at the end of summer, there is a big celebration called Kuritos. It's a festival full of music, songs and dances where all the villagers and visitors gather to celebrate the tradition of wine and viticulture. Children play, adults dance traditional dances, and everyone enjoys the sweet wine and fresh grapes. As the children explored Rodolivos, the word culture was everywhere, in the songs, the dances, and the stories they heard from the elders. The next stop was the Cultural Association, which was full of people preparing for the summer events. The president of the association explained to the children that the Cultural Association was founded in 1978 when a group of young people from Rodolivos wanted to keep the traditions of their homeland alive. Since then, the association has organized theatrical performances, concerts and dances to preserve the village's traditions. "Would love to become members of the association one day," said Philippos enthusiastically. "I think it would be wonderful to take part in all of this too," added Ioanna. The president smiled at them warmly. "You're welcome anytime to come and learn about our traditions. Everyone here is like one big family," he said kindly. Continuing, the president told Ioanna and Philippos that the village has 5 more important associations, each with a special role. The Active Citizens Group, which has collected many blood donations and supported hundreds of people in need. The Women's Association, which actively participates in all social and cultural events. The Parents and Guardians Association, which looks after the students' needs and works closely with the local school. And finally, Ethnikos Rodolivos and the Mountaineering Club, which have supported the youth through sports and outdoor excursions into the natural beauty of the region. The president then invited Ioanna and Philippos to watch a rehearsal of traditional dances. The children happily accepted and soon found themselves in a room full of movement and music. The dancers wore the traditional costumes of the village, and each of their steps felt like it was telling a story. "This association is the heart of our culture," one of the dancers told them. "Without these traditions, our history would be lost. Dance and music are the strongest tools we have to keep this place alive." Ioanna and Philippos decided to explore the Cultural Association. Looking around, Ioanna noticed a dusty board hanging on the wall. The letters were faded with time, but still readable. "Culture of Rodolivos." The children realized that the local traditions were deeply rooted in the cultural identity of the area, through festivals, dances and songs passed down from generation to generation. The next stop, according to the map, was the Rodolivos Town Hall. At the heart of Rodolivos stood an old yellow building with large green windows, resembling a small palace. It was the town hall. Around it was a lush green garden full of secrets from the past. There, Ioanna and Philippos saw an old black cannon standing proudly, as if guarding the village's history. Within the garden were monuments commemorating the heroes of the village and the stories they had left behind. "These monuments are here so that we never forget them," Philippos said to Ioanna. A little later, the village mayor approached them with a smile and encouraged them to visit the inside of the town hall to better understand the history and traditions of Rodolivos. In one of the town hall's rooms, Philippos and Ioanna found an old book titled "The History of Rodolivos." As they read it, they discovered something amazing about the village's past. On the hill of Saint Athanasius, next to the last houses of Rodolivos, there once was an ancient settlement dating from the Thraco-Macedonian period through to modern times. "Wow, I didn't know that," said Ioanna. "Our land has such deep roots in ancient culture." This discovery made them realize just how important the history of Rodolivos was and how deeply the area's cultural heritage had shaped the lives of its people. Excited about what they had learned, they couldn't wait to share the discovery with the rest of the villagers. On the Feast of the Assumption, celebrated each year on August 15, all the people of Rodolivos gathered in the village square to celebrate with music, dancing and food. Among the crowd stood a large harp placed as a tribute to Orpheus, the son of the god Apollo, and to the village's musical tradition. Philippos and Ioanna, holding the map and with help from the elders, announced an important finding, that the traditions of Rodolivos were part of a living cultural heritage that mustn't be lost. Philippos and Ioanna said that the people of Rodolivos should do everything they can to preserve the traditions, customs and practices because these are what unite them and keep bringing them back to their homeland. The children then explained that Rodolivos is a place where traditions and history remain alive. Culture isn't just something to preserve, it's something to evolve and share from generation to generation. They learned that connecting with culture doesn't just mean remembering the past, it means living it and carrying it into the future. Everyone applauded and the older generations began explaining to the younger ones the importance of culture in Rodolivos' life, emphasizing that tradition continues to live on and inspire new generations. As the August 15th celebration reached its peak with dancing and music, Ioanna and Philippos decided to do something bold. Holding the map, they noticed a place they hadn't explored well, a small carved marking next to the caves of Saint Athanasius. They decided to return there late that night after the festivities ended. With flashlights in hand, they found themselves once again among the rocks. There, on the same rock where Ioanna had stumbled upon an old wooden box, they noticed something they hadn't seen before, a faded inscription carved into the stone. "What is forgotten is lost. What is honored lives forever." The words made them think the history of Rodolivos wasn't just in books and museums. It was in the people, in the stories they told, the songs they sang, the festivals they kept celebrating every year. When they returned to the square, they looked for the elderly man who had spoken to them at the museum. They told him about their discovery and he smiled. That message isn't just an inscription, it's a reminder. Every generation must find its own way to keep their homeland alive. Then Ioanna turned to Philippos with eyes full of excitement. "We're going to write a book about all our discoveries. We'll talk to people, collect stories, gather photos." And so, that summer wasn't just adventurous, it was the beginning of a new mission, to make sure the history of the beloved village would never be lost. The light of dawn began to spread across the village, lighting up old rooftops and streets filled with memories. But now, thanks to Philippos and Ioanna, those memories wouldn't just be shadows of the past, they would live on forever. Was it the end of their exploration or just the beginning?